Kestrel's war-painted face streaked with tears as he pressed his dying infant daughter against his chest, her tiny body growing weaker with each labored breath. The arrowhead lodged in his shoulder burned like fire, but nothing compared to the agony of watching Moonfeather fade away in his arms. Her mother had died giving birth during the brutal winter raid, and now his precious child was starving to death. While he bled out on the outskirts of Millbrook Township, the Lakota warrior's proud spirit crumbled as he stumbled toward the first cabin he saw, desperation overriding generations of tribal mistrust. His moccasins left bloody prints in the snow as he approached the modest dwelling where smoke curled from the chimney like a prayer to the Great Spirit. Through frost-covered windows, he glimpsed a woman with auburn hair nursing a baby by the firelight. "Please," he gasped in broken English, collapsing against her wooden door with a thunderous crash that shook the entire frame. "My baby, she dies, needs milk, Indira Blackthorn nearly dropped her own infant son when the bloodied warrior fell through her doorway. Her husband had perished in a Cheyenne raid 6 months prior, leaving her alone with baby Cornelius in this harsh frontier settlement. The sight of the wounded Lakota man cradling the tiny, mewling child should have terrified her, but instead, maternal instinct overwhelmed every rational thought. "Dear God," she whispered, her Irish accent thick with emotion as she took in the desperate scene. The warrior's dark eyes held such profound grief that it transcended the barriers of race and language. Without hesitation, she set Cornelius in his cradle and reached for the dying infant. Kestrel hesitated for a heartbeat before surrendering his daughter to the white woman's gentle hands. Moonfeather's lips had turned blue, her breath coming in tiny gasps that barely moved her chest. Time was running out, and this stranger represented his only hope. Indira cradled the Lakota baby against her breast, guiding the tiny mouth to her nipple with practiced ease. The infant latched on weakly, her survival instincts flickering like a candle in winter wind. "There now, little one," Indira murmured, tears streaming down her freckled cheeks. "Drink, sweet child." Kestrel watched in amazement as color slowly returned to his daughter's face. The white woman's milk was saving Moonfeather's life, creating a bond that defied everything he had been taught about the pale-skinned settlers. This act of pure compassion from a widow who had every reason to fear him shattered his preconceptions about her people. "Thank you," he whispered in Lakota, then struggled to find the English words. "You, save her." Indira looked up at the wounded warrior, seeing past his paint and scars to the grieving father beneath. "What's her name?" she asked softly. "Moonfeather," Kestrel replied, wincing as he tried to remain upright despite his injuries. "She's beautiful," Indira said, adjusting the baby's position to ensure better milk flow. "You're hurt badly. Let me tend your wounds while she feeds." The unlikely pair sat in silence by the crackling fire, united by the fragile life passing between them. Outside, the wind howled through the Montana wilderness. But inside the cabin, something miraculous was taking root. A connection that would challenge everything both cultures believed about the other. Dawn broke over the snow-covered valley. As Indira finished cleaning Kestrel's wounds with practiced hands, the arrowhead had been deeper than she'd initially thought, requiring careful extraction and herbal poultices her late husband had learned from friendly crow traders. The warrior had endured the painful procedure without a sound, his eyes never leaving Moonfeather as she slept peacefully in a makeshift cradle beside the fire. "She's stronger now," Indira observed, checking the infant's breathing and color. "But she'll need regular feeding for several days to fully recover." Kestrel nodded, gravely, understanding the implication. His people had moved on, believing him dead after the failed raid. Returning to find them would take weeks, and Moonfeather wouldn't survive the journey without proper nourishment. The realization that he must trust this white woman completely both humbled and terrified him. "I stay," he said haltingly in English, gesturing toward his daughter. "She needs ... your gift." Indira felt her heart flutter at his words. The gift he referenced her ability to provide life-sustaining milk created an intimacy she hadn't expected. Nursing another woman's child, especially one from a culture she'd been taught to fear, Felt like the most natural thing in the world, of course, she replied, then surprised herself by adding, "You're both welcome here as long as needed." As the days passed, an extraordinary routine developed. Indira would feed both babies, while Kestrel recovered his strength, helping with firewood and repairs around the cabin despite his injuries. He possessed skills that amazed hurt-tracking game in impossible conditions, crafting tools from nothing and understanding the rhythms of nature in ways that made survival seem effortless. "Why you help us?" Kestrel asked one evening as they sat by the fire, watching the babies sleep side by side. Indira considered the question while mending one of his torn buckskin shirts. "When my husband died, I thought about taking Cornelius and returning to my family in Boston. But something about this land called to me. Maybe it was meant to be your daughter, needing what I could give." Kestrel studied her face in the firelight, seeing a strength that reminded him of the warrior women in his own tribe. "Your husband, ... good man?" "He was," Indira smiled sadly. "But different from you. He saw this place as something to conquer, to change. You see it as something to belong to." The warrior's eyes widened at her perceptiveness. Few white people understood the Lakota connection to the earth, the belief that humans were part of nature rather than its masters. This woman saw more than most of his own people gave her credit for. Moonfeather's mother. "She was like you," he admitted. "Strong heart, brave spirit." "Tell me about her," Indira requested softly. That night, as snow fell silently outside, Kestrel shared stories of his wife, singing of her laughter, her courage, her dreams for their daughter. In return, Indira spoke of her journey from Ireland, her hopes for a new life, and the loneliness that had consumed her after her husband's death. They were two wounded souls finding solace in shared grief, an unexpected connection. Neither acknowledged the growing attraction between them, but it hummed in the air like electricity before a storm. When Moonfeather woke crying, Indira instinctively reached for her, and Kestrel watched with wonder as the white woman nursed his daughter with the same tenderness she showed her own son. In that moment, he realized that love recognized no boundaries of blood or skin color. The warrior made a silent vow to protect both mother and children, sensing that his destiny had irrevocably intertwined with theirs. 3 weeks had passed since Kestrel's desperate arrival, and the warrior found himself torn between duty and desire. Moonfeather thrived under Indira's care, growing plump and healthy while forming an unbreakable bond with her milk mother. But spring was approaching, and with it the expectation that he would seek out his scattered tribe. "She calls you Mama now," Kestrel observed, watching Indira cradle his daughter while humming an Irish lullaby. The baby's dark eyes tracked every movement of the woman who had become her world. Indira's breath caught at the bittersweet observation. "She's learned to love easily. Children adapt faster than adults." "Not just children," Kestrel said quietly, his meaning unmistakable. The confession hung between them like morning mist, beautiful but fragile. Indira felt her pulse quicken as she met his intense gaze. Over the weeks, she had come to admire everything about this gentle warrior: his devotion to Moonfeather, his respect for her home, his quiet strength that never turned to violence despite the weapons he carried. "Kestrel," she whispered, using his name for the first time. "What are you saying?" Before he could answer, hoofbeats thundered outside. Kestrel was on his feet instantly, war club in hand, while Indira clutched both babies protectively. Through the window, they saw 6 riders approaching white settlers from town, their faces grim with purpose. "Mrs. Blackthorne," called out Mayor Pemberton, his voice carrying authority and barely contained anger. "We know you're harboring a savage in there. Come out peacefully and no harm will come to you or your boy." Indira's blood ran cold. Had spotted Kestrel during his hunting trips and reported back to town. The men outside carried rifles and rope. This wasn't a rescue mission, but a lynching party. "Go!" she urged Kestrel, pushing Moonfeather into his arms. "Take her and escape through the back window. There's a root cellar behind the woodshed where you can hide until they leave." Kestrel shook his head firmly. "I'd not leave you to face alone." "They won't hurt me," Indira insisted, "but they'll kill you without trial. Please, for Moonfeather's sake." The warrior's jaw tightened as he realized she was right. His presence endangered everyone he had come to love, but leaving felt like abandoning his heart itself. "If I go," he said urgently, "you come with me. Both you and Cornelius. My people will accept you, you saved Lakota child." Indira stared at him in shock. He was asking her to abandon everything, her home, her culture, her identity, to join a nomadic tribe that most settlers considered enemies. The very suggestion should have been terrifying, yet something deep inside her soul sang with possibility. "Mrs. Blackthorne?" Pemberton's voice grew more threatening. "We're coming in. I need time to think," Indira said desperately. "Meet me at the old lightning-struck oak by the creek tomorrow at sunset. We'll decide then." Kestrel nodded, understanding the magnitude of what he'd asked. He pressed a quick, fierce kiss to her forehead, then slipped out the back with Moonfeather as the front door exploded inward. The mayor and his men found Indira alone with Cornelius, her face a mask of confused innocence. "Gentlemen, what's this? About you frightened my baby?" "Don't play ignorant," Pemberton snarled, searching the cabin thoroughly. "Johnson saw an Indian brave near your property multiple times." "Where's he?" "I have no idea what you're talking about," Indira replied coolly. "Perhaps your Mr. Johnson needs spectacles." They found no trace of Kestrel or Moonfeather, though Pemberton's suspicious glare suggested he didn't entirely believe her story. After threatening to post guards and issuing warnings about consorting with savages, the men finally departed. That night, Indira sat alone by her fire, staring at the empty cradle, where Moonfeather had slept. Her arms ached to hold the child again. Her heart yearned for the warrior, who would become so much more than a desperate stranger seeking help. Tomorrow's sunset would determine whether she remained. A lonely widow and a hostile Indira spent the day in turmoil, pacing her cabin, while Cornelius played obliviously with wooden toys his father had carved. Every rational thought screamed against the madness. Kestrel proposed leaving civilization to join. A Lakota tribe meant abandoning safety, comfort, and everything familiar. Yet her heart pulled her toward the lightning-struck oak where destiny waited. As sunset approached, she bundled Cornelius in warm furs and made her way through the forest to their meeting place. The ancient oak stood like a cathedral in the wilderness, its massive trunk split by celestial fire, yet still alive, still growing. Kestrel emerged from its shadow as if summoned by her thoughts, Moonfeather sleeping peacefully in his arms. "You came," he said, relief flooding his voice. "I had to see you again," Indira admitted, drinking in the sight of them both. "I don't know if I can do what you're asking." Kestrel approached slowly, recognizing her fear. "My heart knows you before my eyes saw you," he said in carefully chosen English. "In dreams, singing doves showed me woman with sunset hair who would mother our daughter. I thought dreams were grief-making pictures, but you are real." Indira's breath caught. "You dreamed of me?" "Many moons. Always same you feeding Moonfeather. Singing strange songs, making her laugh. But in dreams, you had paints on face, wore deerskin dress. You were Lakota woman." The prophecy sent shivers through Indira's spine. She had experienced dreams, two visions of herself in native dress, living in a tipi, feeling more at home than she ever had in Ireland or Massachusetts. She had dismissed them as fantasies born from loneliness. "The townspeople suspect," she said quietly. "They'll be watching me constantly now. If you return to your tribe without me, I'll never see either of you again." "Then come," Kestrel urged, stepping closer. "My people judge by heart, not skin color. Woman who saves Lakota child becomes Lakota herself. You already mothered a Moonfeather ceremony, only makes spirits recognize what is true." Indira looked at the baby she had nursed, and loved then, at her own son, gurgling happily in her arms. "What about Cornelius? Would your people accept a white child?" "All children belong to tribe," Kestrel assured her. "He become warrior, learn our ways, name him Wasiku. Canty White Heart for his goodness will bring peace between our peoples." The name resonated with profound meaning. Indira realized that Kestrel wasn't asking her to abandon her identity, but to expand it, to become a bridge between two worlds that had been at war too long. "The winter will be harsh," she said, grasping for practical concerns while her heart already knew the answer. We survive all winters together, Kestrel replied. But this spring, we travel to sacred Black Hills, where our medicine man performs joining ceremony. You become my wife before a great spirit. Moonfeather becomes your daughter in eyes of all. Word wife hung in the air like a promise. Indira had been married before, but never to a man who saw her as an equal partner rather than a possession. Kestrel spoke of joining, not ownership, a union of souls that transcended law or convention. If I do this, she whispered, there's no going back. The townspeople will consider me dead to them. Sometimes we must die to old life to be born to a new one, Kestrel said gently. Question is which death you choose. Death of heart, staying here, or death of fear coming with me? Indira looked around the darkening forest, feeling the pulse of life in every tree, every stone. This land had called to her from the moment she arrived, but she had never understood why until now. She belonged here not as a conqueror, but as a participant in the ancient dance between human and nature. Yes, she breathed, the word carrying the weight of complete surrender. Yes, I'll come with you. Kestrel's face transformed with joy as he reached for her with his free arm, pulling her close until they stood as a family unit beneath the wounded but enduring oak. When he kissed her, it felt like coming home to a place she had never known she was seeking. We leave at dawn, he murmured against her lips. Pack only what hearts need, everything else tribe provides. That night they shared her cabin one last time, not as strangers thrown together by circumstance, but as partners chosen by fate, destiny, and the profound love that had bloomed between them like wildflowers after fire. Dawn painted the Montana sky in shades of rose and gold as Indira secured her few precious belongings to the travois Kestrel had constructed during the night. Her husband's hunting rifle, her grandmother's Irish prayer book, a daguerreotype of her parents, and medicines she had learned to prepare. These represented the bridge between her old life and new destiny. Ready? Kestrel asked, adjusting Moonfeather's cradle board with practiced hands. The baby had taken to the traditional carrier immediately, as if remembering ancestral wisdom in her very bones. Indira took one last look at the cabin where she had mourned her first husband, nursed 2 babies, and discovered a love deeper than any ocean. I'm ready, she said firmly. Lifting Cornelius onto her hip, they moved through the wilderness like shadows, Kestrel's knowledge of hidden trails keeping them far from settler roots. He taught her to read sin in the forest, which plants indicated water, how animal tracks told stories of the ecosystem's health, where to find shelter when storms threatened. Your people must think you're dead, Indira observed on their 3rd day of travel, watching him examine a broken branch with intense concentration. Perhaps better they believe so, Kestrel replied thoughtfully. When I return with white wife and children, some will not understand. Old wounds run deep. Will they accept us? The question had haunted Indira since their departure. Kestrel paused in his tracking to meet her worried gaze. Chief Soaring Eagle is wise man. He knows dreams come from Great Spirit, not human wishes. When I tell him about vision of Sunset Hair Woman saving Moonfeather, he will understand. They traveled for 2 weeks through country of breathtaking beauty, vast prairies where buffalo herds moved like dark clouds across golden grass, crystal streams that sang ancient melodies, and mountains that scraped the belly of heaven itself. Indira felt her soul expanding with each mile, embracing a freedom she had never imagined possible. Cornelius adapted quickly to the nomadic life, giggling with delight when Kestrel showed him how to identify edible plants or demonstrated bird calls that could communicate across vast distances. The child seemed to absorb Lakota ways as naturally as breathing. He has warrior spirit, Kestrel observed one evening as Cornelius fearlessly approached a grazing elk calf, but also healer's heart. He will grow to be bridge between our peoples. Their 15th day, they crested a hill and saw smoke rising from the valley below the Lakota camp. Indira's heart hammered as she took in the circle of Tippis, the horse herd grazing nearby and the people moving about their daily tasks with fluid efficiency. They see us, Kestrel murmured as riders approached at full gallop. The war party surrounded them with weapons drawn, but their aggressive postures softened when they recognized Kestrel. A young warrior named Brave Wolf spoke rapidly in Lakota, his tone mixing joy and confusion as he gestured toward Indira and the children. He asks if I am prisoner or madman, Kestrel translated with slight amusement. I tell him I am man blessed by visions who brings new family to tribe. The escort led them into camp amid growing crowds of curious onlookers. Children pointed at Indira's auburn hair, women whispered among themselves, and men studied Kestrel, with expressions ranging from bewilderment to suspicion. But when they saw Moonfeather thriving in her cradleboard, many faces softened with understanding. Chief Soaring Eagle emerged from the largest tipi, his weathered face grave but not unkind. He was a man who carried authority like a comfortable robe, neither flaunting it nor hiding from its weight. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, assessed the unusual group with penetrating intelligence. My son returns from death with strange companions, he said in accented English, clearly for Indira's benefit. Speak your story, Kestrel, who flies with eagles. Kestrel dismounted and approached his chief with proper respect, then launched into an impassioned explanation in Lakota. Nita caught fragments words for dream, dying child, mother's milk, and great spirit's will. Yes. He spoke, he gestured toward her and the babies, his voice rising with conviction. The chief's expression remained neutral throughout the recitation, but Indira noticed his eyes returning repeatedly to Moonfeather. When Kestrel finished, Soaring Eagle approached and gently touched the baby's cheek, speaking soft words in his native tongue. She is healthy, he observed, strong. Her mother's death could have meant the ending of her lifeline, but instead, it led to new beginning. Yes, grandfather, Kestrel replied formally. This woman fed Moonfeather from her own body, made her daughter of her heart. Great Spirit brought them together for purpose we do not yet understand. Soaring Eagle turned, his penetrating gaze to Indira, who met it without flinching despite her racing heart. After a long moment, he smiled, the first warmth she had seen from the assembled tribe. Woman who saves Lakota child has earned place among us, he declared loudly enough for all to hear. If Great Spirit speaks through dreams and brings you to our fires, then you are welcome at our fires. A cheer went up from the crowd. And suddenly, Indira found herself surrounded by welcoming women who gestured for her to follow them. As they led her toward the tipis, she looked back at Kestrel and saw him watching her with pride and love shining in his dark eyes. Her new life had truly begun. The joining ceremony took place during the full moon of the greening season, when the Black Hills sang with flowing water and budding life. Indira had spent 2 months learning Lakota customs from the tribal women, who had embraced her with surprising warmth once they witnessed her devotion to Moonfeather and her genuine desire to understand their ways. Singing Crow, the chief's wife, had become her closest mentor, teaching her everything from beadwork patterns to the spiritual significance of sacred plants. You have good hands for our work, the older woman observed, watching Indira stitch intricate designs onto the white deerskin dress she would wear for the ceremony. But more important, you have good heart for our children. The transformation in both babies was remarkable. Moonfeather had grown plump and laughing under Indira's continued nursing, while Cornelius, now called Wasik Kanti, by the entire tribe, chattered constantly in a mixture of English and Lakota. He followed the older boys everywhere, fearless, and eager to learn the ways of his adopted people. Are you nervous? Kestrel asked, as they stood together outside the ceremonial lodge on their wedding day. He wore traditional regalia decorated with eagle feathers and porcupine quills, looking every inch the noble warrior she had fallen in love with. Terrified, Indira admitted with a shaky laugh. What if I make a mistake during the rituals? If the spirits reject our union because I'm not truly Lakota? Kestrel took her hands in his, calloused fingers gentle against her palms. Great Spirit cares nothing for color of skin. He sees only truth of heart. Your heart has been Lakota since the moment you chose to feed dying child rather than turn away in fear. The ceremony began at sunset, with the entire tribe gathered in a great circle around the sacred fire. Chief Soaring Eagle conducted the rituals with ancient words that seemed to call spirits down from the star-filled sky. Indira felt the power of the moment washing over her as she and Kestrel exchanged vows that bound them not just to each other, but to the eternal cycle of earth and sky. When the medicine man painted her face with sacred symbols and placed the eagle feather in her hair, Indira felt something fundamental shift inside her soul. She was no longer Irish-American Indira Blackthorn, trying to fit into Lakota society. She had become Winona Ska, White Dove, a name earned through her actions and blessed by the spirits themselves. The celebration lasted 3 days, filled with dancing, storytelling, and feasting on buffalo, elk, and the first wild berries of spring. But the moment that moved Indira most came on the final evening, when an ancient grandmother named Walks with Spirits approached her with tears streaming down her weathered face. "I have lived 90 winters," the old woman said in careful English. "I have seen much sorrow between our people's wars, broken promises, children killed. Ow. But tonight I see hope. Your love for Lakota child shows that hearts can cross any boundary if they are brave enough to try." That night, Indira and Kestrel consummated their marriage in a tipi decorated with gifts from the entire tribe. As they lay entwined afterward, listening to Moonfeather's peaceful breathing and Cornelius's soft snores, they spoke of dreams for the future. "Want more children," Indira whispered against Kestrel's chest. "Children who will grow up knowing both worlds, who can help heal the wounds between our peoples. Daughter, who is half Lakota, half Irishy, will be strong like her mother," Kestrel murmured, his hand tracing gentle patterns on her bare shoulder. "Son, who carries best of both bloodlines, he will lead others toward peace." "Do you think it's possible?" Indira asked. "Real peace between Indians and whites?" Kestrel was quiet for a long moment, considering the weight of centuries of conflict and mistrust. "Perhaps not in our lifetime," he admitted. "But our children, their children, they will carry new story. A story that begins with desperate father and compassionate mother who chose love over fear." As if summoned by their conversation, Moonfeather stirred and began to fuss. Indira sat up immediately, her body already responding to the child's needs, as she nursed the baby in the flickering firelight. Kestrel watched with wonder at this daily miracle that had brought them together. "She is truly your daughter now?" he observed softly. "In all ways that matter." "She always was," Indira replied, looking down at the contented infant. "From the moment I held her, I knew she was meant to be mine. Just as Cornelius was meant to become Lakota, just as you and I were meant to find each other." The next morning brought news that would test their newfound happiness. Scouts reported soldiers approaching from the easta, cavalry units searching for hostile Indians in the wake of recent conflicts. The peaceful interlude was ending, and hard choices lay ahead. But as Indira strapped Moonfeather into her cradle board and watched Kestrel prepare his weapons with grim determination, she felt no regret for the path she had chosen. Whatever challenges awaited, they would face them as a family, united by love stronger than any force that sought to divide them. The approaching cavalry forced the tribe to make their most difficult decision in generations. Chief Soaring Eagle called a council meeting. As dawn broke over the Lakota camp, his weathered face bearing the weight of leadership in dangerous times, "Bluecoats come with questions about raids near Millbrook," he announced to the gathered warriors and elders. "They seek someone to blame for white settlers' fears." Indira's blood chilled as she realized the implications. Her disappearance from town had likely sparked rumors of Indian kidnapping, and now soldiers were coming to extract justice. If they found her here willingly married to a Lakota warrior, both communities would face severe consequences. "I should go to them," she said, quietly standing with Moonfeather in her arms. "Tell them I came of my own free will, that no crime was committed." "No," Kestrel said firmly, his hand moving instinctively to his tomahawk. "They will not believe white woman chose Indian life freely. They will think you were forced, violated. It will mean war." Chief Soaring Eagle nodded gravely. "My son speaks truth. Bluecoats see only what confirms their beliefs about savage Indians stealing white women. Your presence here puts entire tribe in danger." The solution came from an unexpected source. Old Walks with Spirits stepped forward, her ancient eyes blazing with sudden inspiration. "Long ago, when I was a young woman, my grandmother told me stories of the spirit trail-hidden paths through sacred caves that lead to distant valleys where lost ones can begin new lives. The old woman speaks of legend, brave wolf protested. Children's stories to explain where missing people go. No, the medicine man interjected, his voice carrying authority. Spirit trail is real. My father's father used it to escape white soldiers after Little Bighorn. Cave system runs deep beneath Black Hills, emerges near a Canadian border where Queen Victoria's law protects Indian people. Hope and heartbreak warred in Indira's chest. Escape meant survival for the tribe she had grown to love, but it also meant permanent exile from the world she had known. More importantly, it meant separating Cornelius from any chance of reconnecting with white society when he came of age. The boy should stay, she said, looking at her biological son, who was playing warrior games with the other children. He's completely oblivious to the crisis unfolding around him. He could have a future in both worlds if he remains here. No, Kestrel said with absolute finality. We are family now. Families stay together, face whatever comes together. Wasaku Kante belongs with his mother and sister. The decision was made with characteristic Lakota efficiency. Within hours, the tribe had prepared supplies for the dangerous journey through the underground passages. Indira found herself once again packing precious belongings. But this time, the items were different. Moonfeather's first moccasins, beaded toys the tribal women had made for Cornelius, and the eagle feather from her wedding ceremony. As they prepared to enter the cave system, Chief Soaring Eagle approached with a final gift, a leather pouch containing seeds from the tribe's sacred plants. For new garden and new land, he explained, so you never forget people who call you daughter. The journey through the Spirit Trail took 3 weeks of navigating underground rivers, crawling through narrow passages and camping in vast chambers that echoed with the whispers of ancient spirits. Kestrel led them with unwavering determination, following markings left by generations of his ancestors who had used these paths in times of desperate need. Cornelius treated the adventure as the greatest game imaginable, his laughter echoing off stone walls and bringing light to the darkest moments. Moonfeather remained surprisingly calm throughout the ordeal, as if she understood this was another beginning rather than an ending. They emerged into sunlight in a hidden valley north of the medicine line, where a small band of refugee Lakota had established a peaceful settlement. The leader, a wise woman named Four Winds, welcomed them with tears of joy. We heard in dreams that Winona Ska would come, she said, embracing Indira like a long-lost sister. The spirits whispered that White Dove would bring new hope to our hidden people. In this sanctuary, Indira and Kestrel built their true home. He became the settlement's primary hunter and protector, while she served as healer and midwife, using knowledge gleaned from both Irish folk medicine and Lakota plant lore. Cornelius grew into a bridge walker who could speak fluent English, Lakota, and French, eventually serving as translator for the various refugee groups that found their way to the valley. Moonfeather blossomed into a beautiful young woman who carried herself with quiet pride, never knowing she had been born to tragedy until her parents told her the story on her 16th birthday. I am lucky, she said simply. 2 mothers loved me, one gave me life, the other gave me everything else. Over the years, 4 more children blessed their union, 2 sons and 2 daughters who grew up bilingual and bicultural, comfortable in both worlds yet belonging fully to neither. They became teachers, healers, and peacemakers, carrying their parents' message of love, transcending boundaries into a changing world. Indira often stood at the edge of their valley, watching eagles soar over the endless prairie and remembering the desperate warrior who had collapsed at her door so many years ago. What had begun as a simple act of maternal compassion had grown into a love story that spanned cultures, defied conventions, and created a legacy of hope. When Kestrel found her during these contemplative moments, he would wrap his arms around her from behind and rest his chin on her graying hair. Do you ever regret choosing the difficult path? He would ask. Never, Indira always replied, leaning back against his strength. Love doesn't ask for easy choices. It only asks for true ones. Yes. Their story became legend among the hidden people of the valley, proof that even in a world torn by hatred and fear, 2 hearts brave enough to cross the boundaries of race and culture could create something beautiful enough to last forever. As the sun set on their final days together, surrounded by children and grandchildren who carried the best of both worlds in their veins. Sneera and Kestrel knew they had achieved something more precious than peace between nations. They had demonstrated that love, when pure and selfless enough, could transform not just individual lives, but entire destinies. Their love story continued in the laughter of mixed-blood children, in the healing herbs that grew from sacred seeds, and in the whispered legends that promised future generations. That bridges could be built across any divide by those courageous, enough to extend their hands in trust rather than raise them in fists of fear.